Sports prime time on a Sunday night. Hope everybody is feeling right. Hope you're living well. Hope you enjoyed that Titans and Colts game earlier this evening, or rather this afternoon at this point, as I sit here broadcasting live from Nissan Stadium. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Titans and Colts, the game that was, and a situation for Tennessee that was quite interesting, a game that they very well could have lost had things gone a little bit sideways in just a few areas. It was a closer call than I think most of us would have imagined, or if you're a Titans fan, you would have liked to see, but certainly something that we're going to get into over the course of tonight's show. We will spend some time on Mike Vrabel and his comments. The head coach was not pleased at all after the game, and we'll get into a little bit why he was upset with the situation. Brandon Deseret says, "You got knocked the F out." Yes, and I made the Bussin' with the Boys hype video. I go on their podcast, I carry their podcast, and this is the way that they disrespect me. So I've already had words with the boys, their production staff. It's pretty funny. Said, "Quit being a hater," says Rob Foster. Well, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Producer Reed has grabbed the video for those of you who did not get to see it. We will talk about it over the course of this evening. We'll talk about some of the interesting situations that arose between Bud Dupree and Julio Jones and what kind of went down there. And, of course, the news that Paul Kaharski reported about Rashad Weaver breaking his fibula, if I recall the report correctly. In fact, that is correct. He did fracture his fibula, according to Kaharski, and we'll spend some time on that tonight. Philip Perkins says, "I imagine Vrabel's pissed off after sex." Oh, that's a visual I did not need this evening, but it made me laugh nonetheless. So we will get into that over the course of tonight. Before we do that, I need you to share this show around. If you're hanging out on Facebook, you can retweet the show, or excuse me, you can share this show in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Share now to public. That's how you get involved on Facebook Live. If you are hanging out on Twitter, you can retweet the show, and that's the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, like John Moreland or any of or Rex B, you can subscribe to the A to Z Sports channels, where you can get our live stream content 7 days a week and sometimes twice a day, even. Hell, sometimes 3 times a day, based on how much you're consuming. So it's all there and available for you. And now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and begin the show officially before the lights go all the way out at Nissan Stadium. Welcome into A to Z Sports prime time on a Sunday night, not from the DraftKings Sportsbook studios, instead from Nissan Stadium. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford is the best in the business since 1983. The Built For You program will specify the vehicle of your choosing to your exact needs and provide it to you straight to your door. In fact, Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is DraftKings Sportsbook. I did not great on my college football bets over the weekend, because you know that I don't bet on the NFL out of ethical concerns, being a NFL reporter. But DraftKings Sportsbook will get you in on all the action. Great odds boost, great profit bonuses that they can provide to you. Promo code A2Z Sports is how you get it done in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Brymac Mechanical, BRYMAK, that's Brymac.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. They will put you in your comfort zone as the seasons begin to change. BRYMAK, Brymac Mechanical. And of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, where I saw some of you tailgating today. The Gary Ashton tailgate before every Titans home game is where you can hang out with the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans of A to Z Sports Prime Time, and hell, the Nashville Predators. I saw they're playing a preseason hockey game tonight. In fact, I think they lost to the Florida Panthers 3-1 in preseason action. But we will save preseason Preds hockey for another day. So this was an interesting game, right? Because The head coach was pissed off afterwards in the post-game press conference with us, and there's a variety of reasons for that I'll kind of let Mike expand on. You'll hear from him because, of course, we have video from the post-game interview, the post-game press conference. But Brock Kraft kind of sums it up the way a lot of people feel, I think. Brock Kraft says, and I'll try not to, I've perched my laptop up so you can see Nissan Stadium behind me. So if the camera shakes a little bit, that's why. But Brock Kraft says should have won that game by 20 plus. Coach has every right to be pissed. And it's not just that they had opportunities that they didn't capitalize on. It's that there were a fair amount of injuries today for both teams, right? Quentin Nelson was apparently carted off. I didn't see him leave on a cart, but I did see Rashad Weaver leave on a cart. A.J. Brown was ruled out very quickly. And was ruled out at halftime dealing with hamstring injuries. Julio Jones, it's a complete and total mystery, and we'll spend some time on that later in the show as to why Julio Jones was not a participant basically from halfway through the third quarter on. And then, things start to mount up. You have a bad turnover differential again, but ultimately the result is in your favor, and you've beaten a division rival. The first time that Mike Vrabel has beaten the Indianapolis Colts in Nashville occurred today. The first time in heading into we are in the fourth season of Mike Vrabel's tenure as head coach. So, even in a win, pretty pissed off he seemed to be afterwards. He came in a bit of a huff. He left in a bit of a huff. He kind of slammed the door on his way out. He was firing shots at some of us in the media. Mike wasn't about it today after the game, even in a win. So the question that I have for you guys, your Two Rivers Ford take here on a Sunday night, the question that I have for you is, what about the Titans win did you like most on Sunday? Mike Vrabel will tell you about his situation here in just a second. I'll tell you what I liked most about the way that the Titans were able to win today. In the meantime, you can tell me how you feel about it. While you do that, I'll tell you about the people who present the Two Rivers Ford take. That, of course, is Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers Ford has the Built For You program, a program that they are proud to announce having rolled out about a month and a half ago. The Built For You program means that if you go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet and you don't find the car on the lot that you have your heart set on, that you spent your time window shopping at tworiversford.com, then they will be able to customize the vehicle for you, any Ford, any color, with any customizable accessories, and they will deliver it directly to your door. That's what makes Two Rivers Ford the best car buying experience around. I would say in just Middle Tennessee, I'm convinced it's the best car buying experience in the state of Tennessee. Hell, in the country, in the world. Two Rivers Ford is the best in the business. Go pay them a visit. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. Jason Connor just says, "Buck, go home." It's funny that you say that, and we'll get into what you guys like most about the game today. It's funny because with how many noon games they play, it turns into a pretty long day for me between pregame radio at the stadium. I got here at about 8. I got to Nissan Stadium at about 8:30, so we're going to push 12 hours here in about 20 minutes. And it doesn't really bother me. I have a lot of work to get done. I got a radio show tomorrow to plan. I've got podcast guests to book. I've got articles to write. And I wrote about it at A to Z Sports Nashville.com. So I'm working either way. Might as well do the show. Might as well do prime time from Nissan Stadium. I think this is a nice aesthetic, unless you guys don't care. But I think, when we're on the road next week in New York, to do it from MetLife, when I'm even in Jacksonville, even in terrible leaky press box Jacksonville, I think people like to see the different stadiums and like to, feel like you're in the stadium with me. So I think it's a nice aesthetic. Otherwise, I would go home. So Dago says, "What's up with Vrabel?" Yeah, Mike Vrabel's pissed. Mike Vrabel's pissed after a win today, and there were a great many reasons as a result. But I wanted to start with what you liked most about the game for this reason, because there was a lot to like about the way that they won, even if you didn't kick the Colts' ass the way that you thought you ought to kick the Colts' ass. And at the end of the day, it's very rare that an NFL team like the Jets got shut out by the Broncos today. Very rarely do you see such a stark difference between two teams like Miami and the Jets. That was Miami that got shut out by Buffalo. last week. So it's very rare that you see just straight up ass kickings in the NFL, even as everything told you that the Titans should handle the Colts pretty well. And they did have some opportunities that they gave up, right? NWI had the fumble. Tannehill had 2 interceptions, one that was his fault, the other that was not. The one that came off Chester Rogers' hands was popped up in the air, tip drill. DB makes a play on the ball, and the other he threw, or the first one he threw just directly into Darius Leonard's lap, and it looked like McNichols and Tommy Hudson ran into each other on the play. So there was some clunkiness to it, and the turnover thing is something that they need to get resolved. But there was a lot. You're sitting at the top of the division. It's early in the season, but you're still finding ways to win these games as you're trying to find your stride and navigate through a handful of things. And at the end of the day, Chris Head, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on this on the radio show tomorrow, he says Ryan Tannehill's a dog. He carried us today. Ryan Tannehill is playing at such a high level that I think it's rare. I think it's rare for people to kind of sleep on a quarterback that does as many things as Ryan Tannehill does. But that's a topic for the radio show tomorrow. Tonight, and Ryan Tannehill may be the thing that you like the most tonight, and we can spend some time on that as well. I've got some very favorable numbers for Ryan Tannehill resulting from tonight. But first, I want you to hear from the head coach, because there were a lot of things that Mike didn't like tonight, and then I'll tell you what I liked about how the Titans beat Indy.
How important was it that Ola and Landry were able to win off the edge quite a few times and keep Wentz under duress?
I mean, yeah, it'd be great. It's called pass rush. You guys go back, you guys pass rush experts, so you guys should be able to identify that pretty well. It's good to have guys winning.
A long season, obviously, but how important to win, get to 2-1, knock them back, and put them in 0-3 early?
Very important. Finally got a little bit of momentum coming back here from Seattle. Back at home, division. Can put some space in between us and them, and obviously take a look and see where Jacksonville and Houston are. But these games are difficult. These games are tough against Indianapolis, and give them a lot of credit. But I felt like our guys were better in the end.
So that's a salty Mike Vrabel after the game today, and there's a lot of reasons why he's pissed, right? Vrabel, John Bertotti says, "Holy cow, he's pissed." John Carlos says Vrabel is so pissed. It is Mike. Listen, Mike Vrabel is a very as Dom Odell says, it was a hard-fought division win. Get the stick out of your ass, Vrabel. But here's the thing about coaching, and this is why it seems like a miserable profession. Because even though they won today, there are plenty of things that Mike Vrabel saw as a coach that probably drove him crazy, that they've worked on throughout the course of the week at practice, that they've tried to correct, and that showed its head. Turnovers, for an example, the way that they were really good on defense today, honestly. So defensively, he shouldn't have had an issue. But I think there was a lot of stuff, Ryan Tannehill not sliding, and Ryan joked about that after the game with CBS, saying it was going to come up in meetings with Vrabel tomorrow. So Mike is looking at this differently than the rest of us, right? Because Mike's job as a coach, and as any coach, is to, no matter how much you win or how much you win by. That's why Nick Saban is bitching about Alabama, even though they beat Mercer by like 35 points. I can't remember the final margin of victory, but you understand. Because the job of the coach is to consistently demand more of the players, of the staff, of the organization. More. It wasn't good enough. Got to play better, got to coach better. It sounds like just words, but there is some truth in all of it, right? Mike Vrabel's job, and the job of any coach, is to consistently demand more, no matter what the result on the field or on the court or on the ice, wherever you're playing. So it's a bit of a misery in that regard, right? And so that's the way that Mike looks at these things. But for all of the bad, and there was a handful of bad, right? There was a lot of bad. They still found ways to win, which was interesting to me. Now, the thing that I like the most about this, I'll tell you about here in just a second, right after I tell you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. America's top-rated sportsbook app is DraftKings Sportsbook. the best in the business, and you can get in on all the action, including week 3 in the NFL. One more game there's one game going on right now on Sunday Night Football, one more game to play tomorrow night. The NFC East back in action. You can get in on the action on DraftKings Sportsbook, because for new customers using the promo code A2Z Sports, you can make $150 in free bets by simply plugging in the promo code and betting $1 on any football game. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official partner of the NFL and will put you in position to succeed. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code A2Z Sports to get that $150 in free bets instantly when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code A2Z Sports to get $150 in free bets instantly this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So what I liked the most was what I wrote about after the game at A2ZSports.com, and you can always read my post-game articles there. What I wrote about was, man, they're finding ways to consistently pressure the quarterback. Harold Landry had a great day today. I saw this from Next Gen Stats after the game. Harold Landry was one of the best people rushing a quarterback in week 3, at least in all the games before Sunday Night Football, right? It's a career high 12 pressures for Harold Landry today, and the Titans 25-16 win. Again, this is courtesy of Next Gen Stats. Landry's 37.5% pressure rate is tied for the 3rd highest in a game in the Next Gen Stats era. So Harold Landry is not just performing at a high level for like his peers this week. Harold Landry is performing at a really high rate. Understanding he's in a contract year, and everybody went through this with Corey Davis not too long ago, Chandler Jones in week 1 against Taylor Lewan, right? There is performance happening on the field. It's freeing up players like Ola Adenyi because Harold's such a problem. Harold had a couple near strip sacks today of Carson Wentz, near forced fumbles, just inches away, a fingertip away, swinging around the edge, arm up in the air, waiting to, bring the hammer down on Carson Wentz as he's rearing back to let it loose. It was a really, really strong performance from the Titans up front, back-to-back weeks, because, of course, outside of the coverage busts, they really gave Russell Wilson the business late in that game with the interior pressure stunts that they were creating. That happened again today. It allowed Ola Adenyi to make plays. It allowed Harold Landry to make plays. Danico Autry, Jeff Simmons. These guys were active up front, and that is something that you feel good about. Now, when we talk about this, it's also important to note that there was a weird situation today with Bud Dupree, who was active for the game, and I asked Mike Vrabel about this. I said, because Mike had talked about it on Friday. He had said, we're still kind of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, with Bud's knee, we're still trying to find the best way to manage it on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And turns out for today, Bud Dupree was unavailable, even though he was active, even though he was dressed out. Because Derek Roberson has not practiced, Derek Roberson has been hurt. He was inactive. So Bud Dupree was in case of emergency only, basically. Rashad Weaver snaps his fibula, gets carted off. He's probably done for the year, I would imagine. But we will wait to see what the ultimate prognosis ends up being. I just can't imagine that somebody comes back on a broken leg now that the season has begun. And so that remains to be seen. But Ola and Harold were able to perform despite the presence or despite the absence of these other guys that we're talking about. It was problematic. It will be problematic. Your depth is perilously thin, but right now, I'm pleased to see the kind of pressure that they're getting if I'm a Titans fan, because, of course, that's the thing that they solely lack. I mean, think about it this way. Ola Adenyi had a sack wiped away today because Chris Jackson got an illegal contact penalty, if I recall correctly. So finished with a sack and a half. He has 2.5 sacks on the year. Should have had 3.5 sacks if Chris Jackson did not get that penalty. But, the shit happens, right? And so Ola and Jeffrey and Autry and Harold and all of these guys that they've been trying to platoon, Laurel Murchison, Tier Tart's not really a pass rush contributor, but he does give you the ability to push the pocket in certain situations in spurts. So I'm comforted by the pass rush, but the injuries do concern you the more that you kind of look at this situation. So they are lucky to have won today. Truly and honestly, they were lucky to have won. But they did win, and they did it on the strength of what makes this team great. And what makes this team great so far, at least in the last 2 weeks, has been some really, really strong defensive play. Again, outside of those 3 plays that we talked about last week that went through for so much yardage through the air. What did you like most about this win for the Titans? Dom Odell says, Swaim, still not impressive. 3rd drop, 4 in 3 games. He doesn't need to be playing. Ola is a beast, says Christine Lind on YouTube. She likes him a lot. Let's see. Ryan Williams says, I'm confused. Why is Julio getting managed down the stretch in the 4th quarter when we need to go put the game away? You know what? Why don't we talk about that coming up next? The question that I have for you in that regard on Julio Jones is this. Well, and it's not specifically about Julio Jones. Why don't we make it about all 3 of these injury/unknown situations? Because I can't qualify Julio as an injury because he was never listed with any kind of injury designation, whereas Dupree was and A.J. Brown was, as we'll talk about. So which Titans injury/unknown, we'll count Julio as the unknown, and really Dupree, even though it sounded like he was unavailable today, or Mike Vrabel told us he was unavailable today. Which concerns you the most, Julio, Bud, or A.J. Brown, who was ruled out of this game with a hamstring injury? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it at length together right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress. GaryAshton.com is where you go to get the intel that you need to sell your home for more. GaryAshton.com will put you in a position to succeed as a home buyer, or if you're trying to capitalize on the seller's market. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage will put you in the place that you need to be able to capitalize on a crazy real estate market in Middle Tennessee. GaryAshton.com, the official real estate agent of the Titans, the Preds, and A to Z Sports Primetime. Carlos Reynoso says Dupree concerns him the most. Eric Hall says Julio Jones. Marcus Joseph Wright says AJ. Anthony Lester says he hasn't gotten better, or he hasn't gotten going, rather, this year. Vrabel is a genius, says Cedric. Well, I think Mike's a really good coach. Genius. Let's see. Let's see something a little more than out Belichicking Belichick before we go outright genius. John Bertotti says AJ hammy tends to linger, so who knows how long he's out or whether he's on a pitch count. Noah agrees with that particular situation. Brett Matlock says Buck, any concern about Farley and Radens being inactive? You want your 1st and 2nd round picks to be producing by this time? Well, those are 2 different situations, Brent. Because for Caleb Farley, he's got an injury, but it's not the back, it's his shoulder. He didn't practice at all last week. So, without practice, if you can't practice at all, then you're going to be ruled out, right? And this is the 2nd week in a row that has happened. For Radens, yeah, I mean, it's not great. It's not great for either of them, right? You want these guys to be contributing, but if you can't help you on the field, and offensive linemen, outside of field goal block and outside of field goal block, or field goal, the field goal unit, offensive linemen aren't playing a ton of special teams, so he doesn't give you any added value there. So, I mean, am I concerned about it? I would be more concerned about it if the secondary wasn't playing well, and the offensive line. I mean, the left side of the offensive line. Credit to Taylor Lewan. He bounced back. He kicked ass today. He really did. Him and Roger Saffold. I thought they had a really, really strong day against a really talented Colts run front. And Lewan had the freak out, or not the freak out, but Lewan had the moment where he's talking about being booed in the stadium the last time that they played here, and how it was it seems to have had a lasting emotional effect on him. And I know you guys don't care about football players' emotions, but I do find it interesting. If I thought we could have a productive conversation about it, we'd have done it. But it just people are going to be too silly is the word that I will use. Be too silly about it and cause problems not cause problems, but it's just not going to be a productive conversation the way that I think it needs to be. So we may spend some time on that tomorrow. Certainly we'll talk about it on the radio show. But what I would say to you is the thing that kind of concerns me the most is the Julio situation, because Julio's situation is just damn weird. And we asked Mike Vrabel about it today. And Mike acted like he's being load managed in game.
What happened down the stretch to be without Julio Jones?
I just think that as this thing, played out, just trying to manage, where he's at and, understand that what the type of game that we thought the end of the game was going to be. And those guys were going in there and trying to, dig safeties out. So we'll keep looking at those guys. And, there's a lot of guys that are, going to need some rest this week. A lot of guys, they played hard, a physical game, and hopefully we can be ready to go when we head up to New York.
I've never heard that before from a coach. I don't know what to make of what he had to say about Julio. So, and it's possible that just Mike doesn't want to talk to us about injuries, and they had a fair amount of injuries that Mike doesn't want to talk about today. So it's Clyde Thompson just says liar, all caps. I mean, he spelled liar wrong. Clyde, be better. If you're going to accuse somebody of falsehoods, then at least spell it right, for God's sakes. L-I-A-R, not L-I-E-R. Jesus. I believe in you, Clyde. Grammar is your friend. But I'm not gonna sit here and call Mike a liar. I don't know what happened with Julio. All I know is like halfway through the third quarter, he just stopped playing. He just stopped playing. And AJ's already been ruled out of the game, right? He comes out of halftime. He's in t-shirt and shorts, and you're just looking around like, what the hell are they doing? It's Nick Westbrook-Akina. It's Chester Rogers. It's Cam Batson. That's the wide receiver set that they're running out there in the red zone in a one-possession game. Jackie Holbert says sounds like he's bullshitting. I mean, it's possible that he is bullshitting, but like, I don't know at this point, as we sit here about 3 hours, or probably about 4 hours from when Mike Vrabel spoke to us after the game. Maybe Julio pops up on the injury report throughout the course of this week of practice, and that answers the question. But he made it sound like he's load managing a couple of these guys, which would explain why Bud Dupree was active today but didn't play a snap, which I thought was interesting. Brandon Garcia says, so what if we would have lost? Would he have had said the same thing? Well, I mean, you can't do the analysis that way, right, Brandon? Because you didn't, and he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to answer that question because you won. So I understand why you're saying that, and does it make sense why your best wide receiver, without A.J. Brown available to you, why your best wide receiver would not be in the game in a one-possession game? I can't. Any explanation that I've been able to come up with in my head defies logic. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I've been texting some people, and at this point, I have not found anything that would indicate that Julio has some kind of long-term issue or nagging issue, that, the same thing that caused him to miss training camp or whatever. Here's what I will say. Okay. And maybe this is a reach, but just an observation that I made. If you follow me on Twitter, or you follow A to Z Sports on Twitter, there's a video that I tweeted out of Julio running a route pregame, before the game starts, right? They come out of the tunnel, they're in uniform, they're going through their pregame routine with their wide receivers coach. They're throwing routes on air, they're catching routes on air, running routes on air. And Julio has a moment where he kind of pulls up a little bit. And he walks it off, and he seems fine. And I didn't want to make anything of it because I don't know, right? He could have just like caught his foot up or something and just kind of skipped in a way that looked like he was pulling up, right? So I don't want to leap and recklessly speculate, but that's the only thing that I saw today that would indicate to me that something happened with Julio that would require him to come out of the game, right? Because he was helping them move the chains in the first half. There's no question. I mean, let me find his final statistics for the day, because it's not like Julio had a bad game. Three catches, 47 yards. four targets, so he did have one that didn't get to him. Nick Westbrook-Akina ended up being the team's leading receiver today. And again, Derrick Henry ties Julio Jones for the amount of receptions that he had in the game. So running backs in the passing game, Derrick Henry or not, they're going to be included, which is interesting to me, something to keep an eye on. But I would say to you that the Julio thing is and Aubrey says Aubrey points out that he had his knee taped up towards the end. Well, no, the knee was taped up before, and I have video evidence of him coming out of the tunnel with that knee, because that was something we were all talking about up here in the press box. It's like, is that something that he had before? Is that something that he had after? Did he get it in the blue tent? Whatever. But I did see him have that knee. It's like, it's not even a full taped knee. It's just like under his knee. It's a very thin taped line that he's got there. But it is something that he did have pregame as well. The status of Reynolds' illness, says Brandon Garcia. Is he going to be available? Bro, Josh Reynolds isn't ill. There's nothing. Nobody's reported that Josh Reynolds is ill. He's just a scratch today. I don't know. I don't know where you're getting that from, but that is not a situation that I would agree with. Over speculation, says Dom Odell. Yeah, I mean, you don't know. If I knew, I would tell you, and if I find out throughout the course of the week, I'll be sure to report on it. But I'm just saying to you that it's not something that came up. TV reporter said illness. Well, I obviously, Brandon, don't see the TV copy because I'm sitting in the press box, and we have the TV on to watch the replay after we see the play, because there's a 20-second delay, but like, obviously we can't hear. We're not playing the TV broadcast in the press box. So if that was indeed the case, I'm sure I'll see it when I go back and watch the game tonight after we wrap up prime time. SMH with all the healthy scratches, says Demetrius. I mean, you didn't have a bunch of healthy scratches. It's just the only healthy scratch that I can think of, because Josh Reynolds isn't healthy. He's been working through a couple of different things. So I wouldn't call him healthy. The only healthy scratch, as far as I know, was Dylan Radin's today. So let's move on. Let's wrap up the show. And let's do, this is a free site, the best thing that I saw on social media this week. And it actually ended up happening after the game, because what happened, and this is the question that we'll ask you. This is a free site, as is our custom on Sunday night. Now, Brandon says should have Darrington back this week. Well, on what grounds? Just because he's on IR for a minimum of 3 weeks does not mean that he immediately comes back after the 3 weeks. Dom Odell says that suit clean though. That's right. Listen, no free ads, but I don't know if you guys probably can't see this, but I get my suits made. Now I get my suits and shirts and pants. I guess the suit counts as pants, but I get my suits made now, and they do a great job. So the game day fits this year have been on point, because again, no free ads, but my guy kills it. So yeah, I wouldn't automatically assume. Now I don't know for certain that Darrington Evans is not going to return off IR this week, but Brandon, that's the better way to put it. Brandon corrects himself and says, well, technically we could have him back. That's correct. Everybody hate on Buck. I don't care. I don't know, man. He's clean every week. It's true. I am. I won't deny it. It's straight up true. Okay. Let's move on. Let's do this as a free site. Now, the question that I have is, because you guys, I'm sure most of you on social media after the game saw the Bussin' with the Boys hype video that they put out. I'm sure you saw Will Compton hit a picture of me in the face with a keyboard, because apparently I've been hating too much on the boys. So the question is, this is a free site. Am I for or against the boys? Am I for or against the boys? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We will discuss it at length together right after I tell you about our friends at Brymak Mechanical. BRYMAK, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed is what you get on all your HVAC needs. They will put you in a position to succeed. In fact, they will put you in your comfort zone. BRYMAK, Brymak Mechanical. 3 locations in Middle Tennessee and in Kentucky to make sure that they are putting you in the best position to succeed. Derek, so Brymak Mechanical, BRYMAK, Brymak.com. So Chris Frazier says, I'm for the boys. Derek says, I'm for the boys. Cody Holzer says, definitely for the boys. Mr. Shekel says against, probably. You are pro the boys, says Matthew Stanley. Well, against, says KingNat66. Listen, I thought it was, you are the asshole of the crew, says Brandon, but you are their asshole. Well, I would say to you that I have been on the bus twice. I regularly, we have Will Compton on the radio show every week, every Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday when the podcast comes out. And I have been a guest on the podcast. I have been on the bus to interview them for my podcast when they first started it before Barstool picked it up and franchised it. So Zach Goodman says against because he wants to be Nashville Podcast of the Year. That's right. 615 or the install, because I got two of them. Are deserving of many, many awards, because we are the reigning champ when it comes to Nashville's best sports podcast / radio show. The 615 still holds the title. They love to dish it out, but can't take it back, says Cody. Nah, they really are good sports, because I do talk a lot of shit for somebody who's an objective media member. Will Tennessee says Buck is no Paul type of ass. And Carlos says, about to say that I'm against because of independence. Well, listen, I would say I'm a neutral party, but when when the boys come after me, just know that that there will be repercussions, just as there will be repercussions for this video that they produced that is simply titled "Buck You."
You are not my son. You're a monster. Get out!
I'm raising the ante. Anybody wants in, get in. Anybody wants out, can get out, okay? This team is going to the playoffs. This team's going to the playoffs.
So the leg's not really broken, huh?
No, it is broken right here.
Just a hairline fracture, though.
No, it's a clean break.
Come on, son, what's it gonna be? Speed or jail?
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am. I'm fast, boy.
We know.
Oh no! Oh yeah!
So that's the Buck You video. Apparently, the video is glorious, says Cody Holzer. Wow, says Will Tennessee. Yeah, so we made the video, and listen, there's no such thing as bad pub, but just know that they. So the question is, am I for or against the boys? Well, what I'll say to you is it depends. If the boys play poorly, then I always talk my shit, but I'm always there the next day for them to go back at me. And I think I'm pretty fair in that regard. They always have the opportunity to talk to me. I always reach out to them before I construct my criticism, whether it be written, verbal, or otherwise. So if the boys are deserving of being for, then of course we will be for the boys. And I root for them personally because Will is my friend, and you guys know that. And if Will comes back to the Titans, then I have to turn on the objective media member thing and tell him to piss off all over again and go back to being a media vulture, and Will can hate me the way I do my job. But you know what? Tough shit. That's the gig. So am I for or against the boys is the question. Tom says you got effing slapped. That's right. Well, listen, if anybody was slapping anybody in real life, it would be me wielding the keyboard and knocking Will Compton's fake teeth out. Because that is how I feel about him often when he derails the radio show the way that he does. But it's all in good fun. I know the guys that do their video production. Hell, I go to the gym with the person. Me and the person who does all their film work. We go to the same gym. So I am probably more for the boys than I should be, is what I will say. But I appreciate them putting me in to their hype conversation. Can't believe, David Allen says, can't believe that off a huge game. This is a topic. Well, David, we talked about the huge game. I wrote about the huge game. I'm going to be on radio talking about the huge game all over again. And if that is not satisfactory for you, well, then perhaps, David, you should get your own show called A to Z Sports Primetime with David Allen. But in the event that you do not or are not able to get your own show and to design the topics the way you want to design them and to talk about the things that you want to talk about and to have a production staff like producer Reed and producer Lucas and producer Andrew and producer Adam who make all of this go, you know what? Here's what I'll say to you. Tough shit. Because we've talked about this. If you're late to the party, that's on you. Be timely. We're 38 minutes in. We're 40 minutes. I'm watching the clock in front of me. 40 minutes and 24 seconds in. So until such time as you get the show, David, then you should go ahead and recuse yourself from the conversation before you sound like more of a horse's ass than you already have. Because the big game has been discussed. It will be discussed more. It will be discussed all week long. And if I would like to take some time for us all to laugh at me, because that's what it was designed to do. It was designed for all of us to have fun together at my expense because somebody put together a video of me getting hit in the face with a keyboard. And if you're not smart enough to keep up with it, or if you're taking yourself too seriously, or your football too seriously, 4.5 hours out of the game, cry me a damn river, David, and take your complaints somewhere else. Because the show is over. The evening is nearly concluded. I have been here for over 12 hours and 9 minutes at my count today. And I will tell you that the Mississippi Mass Choir is gone. We can no longer use them. But what I will say to you is, David, I thank you because you have given me new life after 3 hours of sleep, a whole day of day drinking the day before, and a 12.5-hour game, a 12.5-hour day still rolling. And what I'll tell you, David, if you didn't know, I'm not tired.